the March 22nd, 2018 regular meeting to order. First item is the March 8th meeting minutes. Any changes, additions? No. Next item, financial statement. Mr. Kim, we're up.
Thank you. This is a report of financial summaries for the City of Hayes, month ended February 28, 2018. Revenues in February totaled $2,486,944. That's an increase of $444,000 compared to this same period last year. Some notable areas of increased revenue. Airport improvement revenue was up to $237,000, due in large part to the receipt of reimbursement funds on the Taxiway I reconstruction project. Miscellaneous revenue for the Parks Improvement Fund increased $17,800 due to donations received for Hickok Park, as well as the 40 and 8 boxcar relocation project. And you may have noticed a very large spike in water sales conservation rate revenue. That was due to a utility billing error at the end of February. It's been corrected in March. This was an internal error and an isolated event on one account, therefore no accounts or no other accounts were charged more than intended. Notable areas of revenue decrease. Court fines for public safety revenues were off $10,000 as compared to this time last year. Franchise fees and general government revenues were down $31,700 due simply to timing of receipts. Expenditures in February totaled $2,839,558. That's an increase of $868,708 when compared to 2017. Some notable areas of increased expenditures. Electricity for buildings and grounds increased $26,000 due to timing. The short month of February creates several of these instances, especially with the 1st of March falling on our usual accounts payable day. And this year it actually happened 2 months in a row with both February and March. Employee retirement for employee benefit expenditures rose $11,000 due to the raises given the first of the year, but also the KP&F employer contribution went up 1.06% on January 1. The library's first budgetary allocation went out a little earlier this year when compared to a year ago. Therefore, those expenditures were up $882,000 and account for the large increase mentioned above. New equipment in Public Works Service Division was up $12,180 for the purchase of a 2-ton asphalt hot mix heater. And the projects for special parks increased $10,300 for the park's sidewalk replacement, as well as new disc golf baskets being installed. Some decreased expenditures that are notable. New equipment expenditures fell $125,500 when compared to this time last year due to the purchase of the 2017 Ford Explorers for PD a year ago. Public safety expenditures were down $10,500 due to the purchase of digital audio recorders and new equipment for PD this time last year. The TDD sales tax was off $18,650 when compared to a year ago. You will continue to see this as those bonds have now been retired, therefore there is no longer debt service expenditures. And water reserve expenditures were down due to the land purchase on West 41st Street from a year ago. Month to date, general fund sales tax collections were at $654,233. That's a decrease of $31,068 or negative 4.53 as compared to last year. And year-to-date general fund collections are at $1,218,502, down $73,471, or a negative 5.69%. The report of quarter-to-date sales tax collections by industry classification was down $38,788, or a negative 2%. These top 10 represent 75% of the total quarter-to-date sales tax distribution. Portfolio certificates of deposit on February 28, 2018 totaled $51.95 million, with a weighted average interest rate of 1.33, up 0.53 from a year ago. Par value on the portfolio of Treasury notes is $7,707,000, with a weighted average yield to maturity of 1.78. And the total balance of money market account on February 28th was $1.25 million, with a current yield of 0.5. So total investments are up $707,000 when compared to this time last year.
I move that we approve the February 2018 financial report.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Jacobs. So I know this is an odd question. So what's the maturity on the T-bills that you buy? Are they usually 10 years?
In this case, those are notes. Bills are usually 10
Or
years.
10
These
years,
are notes.
but
they're
these are
less.
notes. So
So
what are,
they can match maturity. So it's any maturity. He tries to match the maturity I'm asking for when I go out for bid, so that I can match payroll or our accounts.
So you're not buying these like on the primary market, it's like the secondary market, or
No, it's
is it
primary.
different? Am I not understanding what this is exactly?
It's a broker with Commerce Bank.
Okay.
Their treasury department who bids for us.
Oh, okay. All right, but it's actual bonds that they're buying?
Correct.
Okay.
They're notes, T notes, treasury notes. They are a U.S. Treasury securities investment.
Okay, so what's the difference between a note and a bond?
Term.
Just the term?
Yep.
So
Bonds
bond
are normally
denotes 10
20, 30
years or more, kind of.
Your notes are less than 10 years, or usually less than 5.
Okay,
And then bills are 5 to 10, and then bonds are longer, 20, 30. But it's just about its term.
okay. I guess I'm not used to your terminology. Thank you. I knew that was an oddball question, but
No,
I guess I've
absolutely
always
not.
just wondered. Anything else?
I guess my only thing is seeing the sales tax revenues being down. For me, that's 2 months in a row, that's the biggest decrease since I've been on the commission, and it's concerning. I know, Toby, we've had multiple conversations, and because the way the city's been ran, not only by city commissioners, city staff for the last 10 years, we're in good shape. But it concerns me that we have to get this turned around. Some of it's out of our control, but I believe some of the stuff we're talking about later down today is the reason why we're talking about this. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nay. Passes 3-0. Next item is citizen comments. Oh, we actually do have some citizens, so if you have some comments on non-agenda items, this is the time for that. Okay. Next up, we have the consent agenda. It looks like we just have a cereal malt beverage license application on there.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Musil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item is the resolution on a resolution calling for a public hearing regarding the adoption of the Hilton Hotel TIF redevelopment project plan. Mr. Rupp, now that I got that spit out.
A mouthful, yes. Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. You're familiar with the application for incentives submitted by Mitra Developers of Wichita. They intend to construct the Hilton Garden Inn and Conference Center. Conducting a public hearing regarding the adoption of a TIF project plan is the next step in the statutory process for TIF financing. The TIF project plan contains details concerning the project description, TIF project costs, and the feasibility study of the project. Back on February 8th, you approved ordinance 3948 that established the TIF district as indicated in this red box on the map. That is the proposed site of the hotel and conference center, just to the west of Walmart. This is a depiction of the site plan. It's the same red box you just saw. You can see the plan for the hotel and convention center with its surrounding parking as well as 2 outlets for future development. The ordinance mentioned above from February established the TIF district. That froze the base year assessed value of the property. Adopting the project plan authorizes the redevelopment project within the TIF district and triggers the 20-year clock on TIF for the project area. So the procedure for adopting the plan is very similar within both notice and publication requirements that we went through for establishing the district. However, in this case, the county and USD will not have veto right. That expired on March 12th for the TIF district, so we're here to continue this process. So on the next few slides, I'll try and summarize that TIF project plan. The first part of the project plan is phase 1. Nothing new here, just describes the intention of the developer for the Hilton Garden Inn. They intend to begin construction 2018 with 18 months for completion. The next section of project plan is phase 2. That involves developing those 2 out parcels you saw on the map earlier for restaurant and or commercial needs. There's been no indication as to who or what or when those develop, other than they plan to have them constructed and be operational in early 2023. Next section of this project plan is the project financial overview. So per the developer's estimates, Phase 1 and Phase 2 total costs would be a little over 19 million. TIF revenue is expected to be 3.7 million over the 20-year term. And the reimbursable expenditures off that would be 3.9 million. So they are predicting that their revenue would be a little short of what's eligible for expenditures. The CID would be 2% for a 22-year period at 3.1 million. And then the initial rebate on the TGT, the 10-year, they're estimating at 1.8 million. Next section is benefits to the local economy. They're estimating that they'll create 80 construction jobs, 80 operational jobs. Certainly will increase the city's hotel capacity and also gain that coveted convention center to attract visitors. Increase the sales tax revenue, because in this case, the TIF will only be the increment of the ad valorem. Sales tax will not be captured. Sales tax will go to the normal taxing entities that it was intended for. And then Wichita State University Center for Economic Development has indicated a benefit to cost ratio of 1.78. So for every dollar input, it's estimated $1.78 would come back out. A little review of the calendar. In April, if you were to approve these resolutions this evening, that sets up those public hearings for April 26th. And then in April, we'll finalize all those incentives with those public hearings. We'll ratify the TGT agreement as well as approve the development agreement, which would have or will have been in negotiations up to this point. And as far as its involvement, the development agreement's involvement with the TIF, the development agreement will limit the TIF reimbursement to the developer to the earlier of 3.7 million or the 20-year, whichever comes first. So options this evening: adopt the resolution to set up the public hearing, decline to adopt the resolution, or provide us with other direction. Staff recommendation and the action requested this evening is to adopt resolution 2018-004, setting a public hearing for April 26th.
I'll move we adopt resolution number 2018-004, setting a public hearing on April 26, 2018 regarding the adoption of the Hilton Hotel and Conference Center TIF redevelopment project plan.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item, resolution calling for the public hearing for the establishment of the Hilton Garden Inn and Conference Center Community Improvement District. Mr. Rupp.
Thank you. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. City's in receipt of a CID petition from MAO Investments. So to start with CID, with this application, I thought we'd quickly review CIDs. They were enacted in 2009. They're intended to promote business activity and economic development. They can be a sales tax and/or special assessment, up to a 2% max and a 22-year term, and intended to finance public buildings, infrastructure, parking, landscape, and promotion of tourism and recreational or cultural activities. The CID will mirror the TIF district that we just talked about. In this case, the property is under contract for sale between MAO Investments LLC and Mitra Developers. Therefore, this CID petition that we are in receipt of is from the current landowner, MAO Investments. Again, as before, state statute requires a public hearing to consider the petition and establish the CID. The CID will then follow the property. Therefore, Mitra will inherit the CID once the sale of the land is complete. CID is very straightforward and not unlike any of the other CIDs that we have. 48th and Rose CID, the Hayes Mall CID, Hayes Investor CID, and the Extended Stay Hotel CID. Phase 1 and Phase 2, again, they're estimating the 19.3 million, 2% on the CID for a 22-year term. They're estimating to bring in a little over 3.1 million. Total CID eligible costs here would be $14,778,000. Those will be on a pay-as-you-go basis, so they are seeking their own financing. They are not asking the city to issue any bonds. And the development agreement will limit the CID to 3.1 million or the 22 years, whichever comes first. So being that pretty straightforward, options again are to adopt that resolution calling for that public hearing, decline, or provide us with other direction. And our recommendation and action requested tonight is adopt resolution 2018-005, setting the public hearing once again for April 26th.
I'll move we adopt resolution number 2018-005, setting a public hearing on April 26, 2018 regarding the establishment of the Hilton Garden Inn and Conference Center Community Improvement District.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Musil. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item is rezoning request of a tract near 22nd Street and Commerce Parkway.
Good evening, Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. The item I wanted to discuss with you tonight is the submittal of the rezoning request for a tract of property near 22nd and Commerce Parkway from agricultural zoning to light industrial. The image here, you can see the approximate location of the property. It does lie east of Commerce and south of 22nd Street, if 22nd Street did indeed continue on east of Commerce Parkway. It is approximately 39 acres in size. This zoning map here shows the current zoning of the property as agricultural, and I also want you to note the property immediately to the west side of Commerce Parkway. That is industrial, and then farther west there is some commercial, some residential, and with the remainder of the property, the majority of the property east of Commerce Parkway being agricultural currently. So in this one here, if you note the blue section here with the arrow, this image is from the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, and it shows the future land uses or proposed future land uses for the area. This area is denoted as Business Park, which the 2012 comprehensive plan Business Park designation is essentially the same as the Unified Development Code light industrial designation. So the public hearing was held on February 19th, 2018, and the Planning Commission did vote 9-0 to favorably recommend approval of the rezoning request as submitted. I will note that utilities are at or near the property. Water does actually run adjacent to the property along Commerce Parkway, and sewer is slated and ready for continuation along Commerce Parkway. It is located at 13th and Commerce Parkway currently. So I do want to take just a minute and show you some of the uses that are allowed in I-1 zoning. This question comes up fairly often. I-1 zoning at light industrial is what we consider for heavy commercial or heavy retail. But you also see office uses, light fabrication and manufacturing. And one thing unique about light industrial is you'll see commercial uses interspersed with light commercial or with light industrial, whereas on the flip side, you will not see light industrial uses in a commercial use. So that's kind of how the two intermingle with each other. Any of these uses on here, these are the uses listed in the UDC as uses allowed by right, meaning no special permissions are required for any of these uses. So once zoned to light industrial, any of these uses are fair game on the property. Kansas State Statute 12-757 subsection D does give the City Commission 3 options for a rezoning request. You could approve the zoning request as recommended by the Planning Commission. You could override the Planning Commission recommendation, which would take a 2/3 majority vote of the Planning Commission, or of the City Commission, which we don't have here tonight. Or you could return such recommendation to the Planning Commission with specific direction and basis for returning it back to them. Our recommendation and action requested tonight would be to approve ordinance number 3949, which would rezone the tract from agricultural to light industrial.
I'll move that we approve ordinance number 3949, rezoning a tract as legally described and adopting ordinance from AL Agriculture to L1 Light Industrial District.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any discussion?
The only thing would be is I'm excited what possibly could happen out there.
I am as well. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item, water line improvements east of 10th and 11th Streets.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. Jeff Crispin, Director of Water Resources. In the past 2 years, Water Resources staff has had some serious water line breaks in the area of 10th and 11th Street between Pine and Vine. The Office of Project Management solicited bids for water line improvements, and bids were submitted by 3 contractors. The area that of this project is outlined in red. That area is directly west of the water plant, north of the Union Pacific tracks between 10th and 11th Streets. This is the scope of the project, and I will point out, basically there, over here would be the water plant. The scope of this project is everything that's kind of hash marked through there, and it goes through an industrial area. There are 2 lines that are within that area, specifically that industrial area, a 10-inch water line and a 12-inch water line that basically run from Milner to Vine Street. Most notably under APAC's concrete ready mix yard and in the Midwest Energy Service Center yard. Recently, we've had several breaks in that area. In my time with the city, we've had 4 breaks. 2 of those would be major breaks. One thing I wanted to note about this project was a cooperative effort between city staff and APAC, whereas APAC is bearing the costs and responsibility of making internal connections. There was 3 meter connections on the 10-inch line that we are abandoning, and they are making a new connection to one service line that's a 3-inch meter. On these improvements that I'll point out, there is an abandonment, hold on here, an abandonment of a line that runs under the I'm getting there, Midland Marketing Grain Elevator that runs along Pine Street. They also, like I talked about, the 10-inch and the 12-inch water line that's in there, and I think there was a question that was asked, how does that work? The line does stay, those lines do stay in there, and we do what's called a line stop. So basically the lines will stay there, the lines are stopped, water will not be able to proceed back through those lines. Also, we're going to install 5 new fire hydrants as part of this project. We're going to install a new water line that is located on Milner Street between 10th and 11th Street. And one thing that is important about that line and then these connections that I'll talk about next, and I failed to mention this last week, we're not tearing up a whole street. This would be similar, that line right there on Milner would be similar to what you saw on Oak Street. So it's just kind of a pretty small cut down that street. We're also making some connections at some intersections of some lines. You'll see a purple line that does kind of run across there along 11th Street. And we're making connections of that 10-inch water line with some other water lines, and there's a 6-inch water line that runs through 11th Street. Those connections will help us feed water throughout that area and send water downtown. I did mention last week that those 2 water lines were put in quite a few years ago, and they actually, one of them served one of the water towers that is close to the pavilion downtown. Okay, I did want to add in, there's a couple of news articles that happened with our July 4th, 2016 water leak. This leak was considered a pretty major leak that caused a lot of concerns with our water supply. I mentioned last week that we have, in the surrounding area, you've seen a lot of things about boil orders, and boil orders happen when you do not maintain pressure of 20 psi in your lines. So it's very important that we found that leak as quickly as we could. Due to the location of that line, it made it hard to find because it was in the industrial area. As I mentioned last week, the water that leaked from that line ran out to a ditch behind, right by the railroad tracks, and then out through Montgomery Ditch, so we were unable to actually find that water pretty early. Usually the PD will find water breaks, or we have citizens that call them in, and as I mentioned, that water line break is in the industrial area, and we didn't see it. So it was very, very big concern. The other concern about that, when we did find it, it was hard to shut it down to actually repair it because there are old valves in that area. And then that picture that is up there, that is the lateral crack in that line, and that was a big, big deal for us to actually deal with. Bids were opened on February 20th, 2018 by 3 contractors. J-Corp was the lowest bidder. They were just under $137,000. And as I mentioned before, J-Corp is also the contractor that's working on our Allen Street project, and they're doing the water line upgrades there. So as far as from a mobilization and having equipment on site, they already have equipment on site, and that would be favorable to us. The project was listed in CIP in 2018 budget, and it had an amount of $500,000 for a budget. At the time of preparing the budget, we thought that our worst case scenario would be $500,000, and it would actually put a brand new line all the way across 11th Street all the way down. So this became a lot more favorable for us. The contract documents, there's a schedule. It calls for work to begin on or about May 1st, take 90 days, and we will do the inspection in-house with the Office of Project Management. Under financial considerations, as I had mentioned before, we had 4 task orders that we worked with Bartlett and West in order to design the line, run hydraulic modeling. It's called the water model. That way we can ensure that we have proper amount of water that's being fed and for fire flow purposes, so that is very important. As I've mentioned before, those engineering task orders were funded out of water production and distribution and water reserve, and those have already been paid for. So what we're talking about tonight is the construction phase of this, which would be just under $137,000 out of water capital. So tonight you have 3 options: accept the low bid from J Corp, direct staff to another option, or do nothing. And that is the action that we are requesting this evening.
I'll move that we authorize the city manager to execute a contract with J Corp in the amount of $136,887 for water line improvements along East 10th and East 11th Streets to be funded from Water Capital Reserve.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Commissioner Bucel, seconded by Commissioner Jacobs. I want to be sure to point out, like we did last week, that, the easy course here for staff, obviously, it was in the budget, it was budgeted for, would be just to go out, get bids, put in the water line, be done with it.
Right.
That's not what you did here. What did you, maybe just a little more detail about what the thought process was when you were doing that?
As far as not replacing it with a full water line?
Yeah.
Well-
You were talking about modeling and things like that,
We work with Bartlett and West, among other engineers, and Bartlett and West runs a water model. Our last updated water model was from 2012. It's very important to have an engineer involved to make sure that you're feeding the proper pressures to hydrants, because we need to make sure we ensure fire protection. You have a 10-inch and a 12-inch water line, so it's very, very important with those lines that come out of the water plant. We need to make sure that we have enough capacity that's running through that area, around that area, and to feed downtown all the way down through campus. And they run that model and they make recommendations, and the recommendations that were made were to make these connections in lieu of actually putting in a $500,000 water line. So it was very favorable, and it helps alleviate the problem of a potential break again within that area.
Right. I just think it's important to point out that the easy road here was a $500,000 replacement, and instead
Right.
we're gonna get the same thing
Absolutely.
accomplished by using existing lines and doing some minor tweaks to it for $136,000.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Jeff, could you go back to that picture that shows that lateral break?
Yeah.
Just from my perspective, how big is that pipe?
That was, I believe that was the 10-inch water line.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, if I can get that out today, the line, the inside of it wasn't corroded. There wasn't a lot of problems. It just failed. And you're talking a 60, 70-year-old line. So we were very lucky, because that very line, as you can see on the picture here down here, what you don't see behind here is one of the feet, the big concrete pillars of the ready mix plant. So when we're out there, we're working on that line, you have a structure that's right above you over a little bit. So that is a concern, but this will actually take care of that issue.
Well, and I was trying to get perspective on how big a break loses 1 million gallons of water.
Yeah, well, when you have a break that you don't know where it's at. I mean, we know right away at the water plant, because all of our pumps start kicking on.
Right.
And so at that issue, 5 hours later, we were out searching for it, and luckily one of the police officers found it for us, so we were pretty lucky.
Have you guys assessed the rest of the system? Are there any other instances where we have pipes like this that are not necessarily in public right-of-way that based on this? I know that this one in particular is pretty easy to point out because of APAC and everybody else that's down there. But are there any other areas in town?
Most of our lines are within streets. This
Right.
is a kind of a unique area because it grew out from the water
Right.
plant.
Right.
So no, we don't have a lot of them that are in those areas, but we are assessing lines that are old. We know where all of our water main breaks typically happen, and those are areas that we are focusing on in our future 5-year plan on CIP.
So is it safe to assume possibly in this same area, I know you guys have fixed that there's probably still leaks ongoing, or would you?
Well, there's no leaks that have surfaced on that line, but I do know for a fact that previous to the four breaks that have been in that industrial area, there's been previous breaks before, because I've talked to staff that's been here long-term. So it's time to take care of it.
Well, I think kudos to APAC and city staff for working together and coming up
Yes.
with this idea. I mean, like you said that last week.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, budgeting $500,000 and spending what we're spending, I think that's great. And I think this will be should be huge on water savings.
Yeah, we sure appreciate their help on it too.
Yeah, APAC's a good, they've been good to the city. They do good
Absolutely.
work.
Yes,
We're
they do.
happy to have them here.
Yes, they do.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Next item, selection of a retail recruitment consultant. Mr. Doherty.
Toby Doherty, City Manager. The city issued requests for qualifications for a retail gap analysis and recruitment firm back in November of 2017. We were actually looking for two components in the responses. One was the analytics, the retail trends, leakage, and opportunities. We're also looking for somebody to come in and actively help recruit retail to the area. So we received 4 proposals, which we thought, given the market of people that do this, we thought the 4 was a pretty good number of responses to us. And I'll run through them in each one in detail. The first proposal I'm going to outline is from MarketTech. MarketTech does analysis only. They don't do active recruitment. I think their analysis services are fine. Their work has been limited to communities in Georgia and South Carolina, and they were looking for a contract of $34,700.50. Buxton was another company that bid, and they also do analysis only. Buxton is probably the community leader, the nationwide leader in data analysis. They have a lot of proprietary data they can get their hands on. They have a deal with one of the credit card companies that they're able to utilize that data. And they were wanting a 3-year contract at $50,000 a year to move forward with them. Econ Solutions is the next corporate company that bid on us. They provide analysis and recruitment assistance, and I want to couch that carefully. They used to not provide recruitment at all. All they did was they would do the analysis. They would prepare marketing materials for the city, statistical information, all nice and bundled up and glossy. And then they would support cities as they went out and did the retail recruitment. They've started to dip their toe into the water of more facilitated recruitment. But again, it's not really their bailiwick, and they fully admitted that. They're a regional company with a small presence outside of California. They are trying to expand their footprint out of California, but right now most of their work has been limited to California. So according to their proposal, they were looking for $25,000 for the analysis side, and then $20,000 was their estimated cost for the recruitment support services based on an hourly schedule. And then the last proposal is from Retail Strategies. Retail Strategies provides analysis and recruitment. They also provide active recruitment. They've been doing this nationwide. They've had lots of clients in the Midwest, including Kansas. And we checked references for these, and Retail Strategies, their references checked out extremely well. Retail Strategies is asking for a contract of $50,000 for the first year, and then if the city wanted to renew for the additional 2 more years, it would be $45,000 for each subsequent year. So just to break down all the proposals together, Buxton and MarketTech, you're looking at data only. If you're looking at data only, you're probably better off going with Buxton. They're we feel a superior product, and the product that's higher rated nationwide. Econ Solutions is dipping your toe into the recruitment water, and they're a fine company, but given what I think the commission's looking for and our understanding of, we want the analytics and the active recruitment, we think Retail Strategies is probably your best bet. So the financial consideration, the city commission budgeted $43,775. That was allocated for the Coalition for Economic Development. We received word right after the first of the year that they won't be seeking public funds anymore. And so that money is there. And so the city commission, if they were to move forward with any one of these companies, could just take it out of that line item. So, again, data only, Buxton. If you want data and some limited recruitment, just support services, Econ Solutions would be a little bit cheaper. Data and full recruitment is Retail Strategies. Our recommendation is a one-year contract with Retail Strategies to do the analysis, start the recruitment services. If the city commission feels confident and comfortable with what they're doing, they can always renew that contract, and if they don't, then you're at a one-year contract and you move on. And so this would be the action requested, and again, we'd recommend that being paid out of the general fund, economic development, other contractual services line item.
I'll move we authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Retail Strategies for an amount not to exceed $50,000 to be paid for out of the general fund, economic development, and other contractual services line item.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Musil. Any discussion?
I'll just stress again what I stressed last week. I'm really excited that we're entering into an agreement like this. I think that given that we got the money back from the coalition, and we talked to the coalition a number of times about retail, I'm seeing the word strategies, retail recruitment, and I think we asked for something that was outside of the scope of what they were really intended to do. So by taking that, them not taking the funding and us being able to use that, I think Retail Strategies brings everything to the table. I'm not interested in anything that doesn't have recruitment with it, that has some performance and outcomes tied to it. So I'm very much in favor of the Retail Strategies piece.
I would agree with you on that. I'm not interested in just telling us, what could come. To me, recruiting, it's a totally different time now for retail. We've all seen the numerous articles that people have sent us, and this is the toughest time probably ever for retail in the United States. And I just don't, I personally don't have a problem with Coalition. I think they're good at what they do, but I think this is the right way to, it's a whole different game now, and we need somebody like this, and we're all in. And I'm excited about it, and hopefully Coalition will work on bringing some other jobs or stuff that we need, because we need more than just retail, but this is a big step.
And I think the city has such a vested interest in the retail because of the sales tax and the general fund. I just don't think we can
Absolutely.
step aside and see if it happens all by itself.
I would agree.
Because we've seen it's not going to happen by itself. So hopefully, the reputation of Retail Strategies is everything we think it is, and they'll do a great job.
Yeah.
Okay. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Do we have an actual progress report?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Because Mr. Jacob is not here. Commissioner Jacobs?
I don't have anything.
I don't either. I think we need an executive session though.
Yes, I would request an executive session for a period not to exceed 15 minutes, to include the city manager, city attorney, city commission with Commissioner Swaller and Dinko participating via conference call, via speakerphone, and it's to discuss potential property acquisition.
Okay.
I'll move we move into executive session.
Second.
Not to exceed 15 minutes. So sorry.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Musil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes, opposed? Passes 3-0. And we won't be making any,
Nothing afterwards.
nothing afterwards, yeah. There won't be any action afterwards.